Thank you for tuning in to watch our Invest Greater Boston launch conference. You're about to watch panel number 2, Development Reimagined, the evolution of space in a changing city. Enjoy.
Good morning, and thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm sure you're all wondering what's Meet Boston and why would they be at an investment conference. So I'll quickly explain. Meet Boston is formerly the Greater Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we are the organization tasked with representing Greater Boston, including 45 cities and towns in the region, as a premier destination for meetings, conventions, and visitation. We travel across the globe talking about this great city, this great region, and inviting people to do business here in the form of hosting large conferences and conventions, but also visiting here as leisure visitors. So with our connection to a group like yours, I want to riff a little bit off of what Chancellor Chen was talking about. Tourism is a key component of economic development in the city of Boston and surrounding areas and in the Commonwealth. What we do is set the table for businesses that might want to move here for talent acquisition and retention. We create the quality of life that makes Boston appealing to people that are considering this location for business relocation and or moving here for a new job. So everything, all of the assets that we have in the tourism sphere are what make the city appealing from a cultural perspective, from a dining out perspective, museums, and it's a huge network of attractions and facilities that we create by having visitors here that residents also are able to use and experience a wonderful quality of life here. I will say Boston is on the cusp of becoming one of the most popular visitor destinations in the country for a variety of reasons. We all know about its incredible history. We know about our incredible legacy in sectors such as life sciences, et cetera. All of this combines to drive people here for visitation. And most particularly, our focus now is putting Boston on a global stage. We do a lot of work domestically, luring visitors and conferences here, but we're spending a lot of our time and resources traveling across the globe, talking about this great city and inviting people to experience that. And we're proud to work with organizations such as Massport, the Mass Convention Center Authority, the hotel industry, and really the entire business community, because you also are our ambassadors. So we want to rely on you to think about Boston as a place to invite people to come, think about the greater Boston area as a great location for your meetings and conferences, and really become our network of ambassadors across the globe. So thank you for having us here. I'm going to invite Ryan back to the stage to introduce the next session.
Thank you. Thank you to Capital Analytics for sponsoring us all here today. I'm delighted to be here. I'm Will Andronico, Managing Principal of Baker Tilly, New England. For those who don't know, Baker Tilly is a top 10 national firm, or should I say top 11. It was a recent merger that closed about a week ago that knocked us down one. It's the top 11 firm in the United States with 7,000 professionals. One of our largest niches at our firm is real estate. So as you can imagine, we hover all around Boston and greater Boston real estate market. We have clients who are developers, clients who are investors, private equity investors, founder investors. We have construction company clients and engineering and architecture firms. And we associate with others in the legal community, brokers, and otherwise. And our other industry niches reside right within this real estate locally. As you can imagine, with Cambridge nearby and greater Boston, and even going out to Waltham and Burlington, our life sciences clients live and breathe in this ecosystem of real estate, our healthcare clients, and our technology clients. So for this reason, I'm thrilled to be here to moderate and learn from our incredible panel today. So today's discussion topics are critical to any major city, but especially in Boston, with a city that's such an old landscape and an amazing history. We're going to delve into the challenges and opportunities facing Boston as it strives to modernize while honoring its rich history. Today's panel will offer critical perspectives on matters around sustainable development, shifting economic conditions, and the importance of inclusivity in urban projects. Together, we'll explore sustainability mandates, adaptive reuse strategies, and community needs, and how they're poised to reshape development landscape in the years to come in Boston. Our panelists are influential stakeholders in Greater Boston's real estate and urban development sectors, and they're at the forefront of shaping the city's evolving landscape. While our time's limited, I'd love it if you could each briefly reintroduce yourself and provide a little background in your organizations so that the audience can get a sense of the context in which your insights will come today. So,
Thank
it
you.
works?
Thanks, Ben. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chanda Smart. I'm the CEO of the OnyxGroup. We are a Boston-based Black women-operated development company. Currently, we're working on 200 senior affordable units in Foxborough. We are also co-developers of the P3 parcel in Roxbury, which is the last largest parcel in Roxbury, 7.7 acres. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I've had too much coffee this morning, so I'm a little wired. Bear with me. My name is Reetika Vijay. I'm the managing principal of IA Interior Architects. Our office space is at 1 IP downtown. For the past 40 years, we have been working with tenants across the world. We have been designing their workplace, and workplace trends have come and gone over the years, but none other time has workplace been so important to our clients. Some of our tenants are Wayfair, NVIDIA, Amazon, iRobot, and actually many of you are my tenants. I've done your office space. So right now we are working with C-suites across the world to redefine workplace and help them bring their people back into the office and revitalize the city.
Good morning. My name is Mark Alaimo. I'm the managing shareholder of LCW CPAs. We're a 40-person CPA firm headquartered in Lawrence, which is about 20 minutes north, depending on traffic in the Merrimack Valley. Lawrence is a former textile city, similar to Lowell. And as we talk about adaptive reuse, we can certainly speak to some of the creative approach that has been taken to really take the infrastructure and the bones of yesteryear, and really kind of have that be the base for the future.
Thank you all. Thank you all. All right, let's set the stage with our first question. And this is for all. Boston's a city with deep historic roots, has high density and kinds of aging structures. For this reason, it faces unique challenges in both modernizing and expanding its real estate landscape. So how do these factors influence the approach to sustainable and inclusive development, and what strategies have become essential for preserving Boston's character while continuing to be innovative in its development?
Jump in. So, Boston is such an amazing city. We have 23 offices across the country. I have an opportunity to go visit those cities and really understand what makes those cities vibe. Boston, we got them beat. Sorry, y'all, we got them beat. It's amazing. And, I think that Boston is a city of neighborhoods, right? And each of our neighborhoods is walkable. Each of them have a really strong live, work, and play component to them. I think what we're finding right now with developer strategy is they are looking for those neighborhoods that are underutilized. The Seaport grew out of mudflats and parking lots, and now is a thriving center of the neighborhood. Even the Fenway area never existed. It was just Fenway Park, and now Samuels and other developers have put together live-work communities. I think now the newest trend that we're seeing is one, taking those fringe locations, 1001 Boylston Street, 1 Congress Street, took locations that were in between the urban fabric, and they're infilling them, not just with office space, but office space with residential units, as well as with retail. Winthrop Center took over a parking garage. We're also seeing developers look at transit sites. So Back Bay, South Station Tower, live work community on the fringe, right above substation with easy access, obviously, to all of the interstates as well as transportation. So that is really connecting the dots in Boston. I'm excited about our city. We are continuing to thrive. I think the one thing that needs to be fixed, what we hear from all of our corporate end users, is we got to fix the commute. We really do. Public transportation is not reliable. Our young professionals are unable to live in the city, and our young professionals fuel the city. So if we could get focused on that, fix some of the issues with the commute, with public transportation, I think that's our next challenge. I'm going to jump in here. A little biased board member of MBCA. We are really trying to we're going to be cheap, but the leadership of building, we are making strides. So we are making improvements. Actually, the red light commute has improved by 20 minutes in the last year. But no, one of the things that we're talking about Boston being a historic city, right? We know that structures are date back to the 17th and 18th centuries. The need to preserve our city's historic architecture and cost retrofit and the cost of retrofit building into future green standards have proven a significant challenge, if not a deterrent for some developers. And some ideas that I think that the other challenges that we have is preserving the historic buildings, balancing the need for modernization, density, limited available space for new construction and expansion, infrastructure, aging infrastructure, leading to significant upgrades and that support development and increased density. And community engagement has been a problem too, especially in urban communities, because it's they want to consider the community, and that's been a long and arduous process. And some of the strategies, I think, though, are adaptive reuse, right? We're repurposing existing historic buildings for new uses, such as converting office building spaces and into residential units, and also transit-oriented development, focusing on new development around public spaces. And also to be another challenge, with some NIMBY situations going on in Boston. So, and rebuilding practices also, that's been another challenge in Boston. So.
I think all of us have the battle scars to have learned from the urban redevelopment move that happened in the 70s. We're not too far from City Hall Plaza, and we have seen how the city's done a great job at making the best of that situation. So, piggybacking off of my fellow panelists here, looking at that adaptive reuse and saying, we don't have we have a first world problem of needing more housing, needing workforce housing as well as affordable housing that, again, also addresses the commuting issues. And everyone's trying to do this when you don't have the luxury of, 15 contiguous acres zoned in an optimal fashion like we did in the Seaport. Everyone looks at the Seaport and says, wow, isn't that tremendous? Isn't it so complementary, and how fast it came up? Well, for those of us that know how unique the zoning footprint is of the Seaport, that doesn't exist anywhere else in the Commonwealth. So for the rest of these communities that have the gorgeous Art Deco buildings or any other architectural features that have really created these communities of the past, it's how do we maintain what is essential that celebrates the past while still making it affordable, sustainable, and beautiful for the future. All of us have driven through, the cookie cutter, Brady Bunch developments of the 60s and 70s where, every house is the same split. We don't have that organically in Massachusetts, which is tremendous. I mean, you can see it in some of the pictures that are adorning the UMass Club, or just look out the windows. So that is tremendously a strength in just the diversity of the image of the footprint that really does also reflect the diversity of our state. So,
John, just going to jump to you for a second, just for what the discussion we had prior to the session. You mentioned that a lot of the complexity is getting zoned and approved in Boston. Is there a trend there?
Yeah, I guess you could say it as a trend. The trend that there's nothing happening. A case in point, OnyxGroup was awarded a project in Foxborough, the same time we awarded, within 2 months at the same time we awarded parcel 3 in Roxbury. Our Foxborough project now is on our second phase. We broke ground, we're got a second building up. Roxbury parcel, we haven't gotten into Article 80 yet. And it's obliterating our performance, quite honestly. And so then, the challenge across.
Heard that a lot. Sure, the legal community in here, can speak to it as well. So you've heard adaptive reuse a few times. And before I get to my next question, I figured for those who don't know, what does that mean? Adaptive reuse means converting and repurposing a piece of real estate from its original use to something new. Here we're talking a lot about office to residential, but some of you may be familiar with the Liberty Hotel in Boston. It used to be the Charles Street Jail. That's a complete adaptive reuse of that facility. If you've been there, it's beautiful. And I bet the room rate's gone up a little bit since it was a jail too, right? So back to office to residential reuse. Office to residential conversions are increasingly touted as a solution of vacancy issues caused by the remote work trends from back in the pandemic days. And on the flip side, these conversions are touted as helping our critical housing issues here in Boston. However, how does this adaptive reuse trend align with broader redevelopment goals in Greater Boston? And what unique challenges have surfaced when applying this to specific projects? What's the reality? Reetika?
Well, the reality is that the conversions are much needed, but the retrofit is costly. And with the LEED, the 2030 mandate, green standards mandate, it's proven very costly. And so when you're looking at converting to affordable housing, there's a financial deficit there where we can't, there's a gap. And so the problem is filling that gap, and who's going to absorb that, the gap, especially when you're building affordable or workforce housing. And that's been, the problem why you would have thought that when they made that mandate downtown Boston, all developers would have it's going to be a fire sale. Not true, just because of the cost of construction. And so my platform is public and private partnerships. Had maybe, in my mind, public and private entity, join forces, partner, collaborate to share the cost of development. And there we have, we're looking at models like that are proven to be lucrative and beneficial on both sides.
I think the office to residential conversion trend is amazing. However, the residential needs to be affordable. It needs to be, right now, everything that's coming out on the market are these $1 million units, $2 million units. So our youth, our average families, our average office tenants cannot afford them. And that's a problem because these individuals fuel the ecosystem of our economy in Boston. If the young professionals cannot live in the city, they cannot use all of the restaurants, the hospitality, the lifestyle, the culture, and it weakens our city. So right now, I know it's a challenge, but either bringing back or coming up with a model that allows for housing that the average person can rent, can buy downtown, or extending the city into more of the fringe neighborhoods where you can develop this, extending the transit, the public transit, so people can live I think in the previous bill, they say 20 minutes out of the city. That's an hour and a half commute every day if you're driving, or even if you're taking the bus to the train to Fidence. I know we're working on it. I know it's a really big challenge, but we've got to, if we are a global city and we want to compete, and we are competing with the New Yorks, with the Londons, with the Berlins, we have to ramp up on specific items that allow individuals to come to the city without being billionaires.
So again, we have an aging infrastructure, and I'm not going to bash the MBTA because I think they do an amazing job with what they have to work. And, it'd be great if, everyone that was along one of the commuter rail corridors just said, oh, let me just give some land so we can get 2 or 3 or 4 rails going, one high-speed rail. It just doesn't happen. So, we have to look at what we have and remember how organically this state evolved, and the initial sprawl happened to say, all right, how do we best retrofit? Number one. Number two, there is certainly a tension in a I'll come back to something from yesteryear. I don't think it's super controversial anymore, but many of us remember the Cape Wind project, and everyone wanted, windmills in the Nantucket Sound. It was a great way for renewable energy, so on and so forth. And I love them, but not in my backyard. Not in my backyard. I don't want to do it. So the local zoning and the local pushback, stopped that development from happening in many respects. As so you're balancing those local voices as you're looking to do redevelopments, and then do these cities really want to have to deal with the second piece that comes with more housing, which means more schools, which means more other facilities and other drains on the tax base that it's great to just have folks come in, have office space that's full. You got places for lunch, places for breakfast, places to get your shoes shined, and then you go home. So that tug of war is certainly very real, especially in adaptive reuse. And I think that and I'm sure we'll get to it a little bit further in this panel, is we can just see how the MBTA communities law has gone, and how that very controversial point is still being battled in many communities.
I'd like to piggyback on that, because the interesting thing about the MBTA Communities Act is that if you might get the opioid crisis, and it wasn't a problem until it hit home, right? And so this is the same thing. It's becoming a problem because it's hitting home now, and folks are realizing that it's not a white issue, it's not a Black issue, it's an everybody issue now, and it's affecting the state, the country. So this is incumbent upon us to just work together and we are our brother's keeper. And yes, and we do have to take care of one another, and that's what it's about.
But with repurposing commercial to residential, is there, it sounds simple, right? You're just going to take this office space, and then we're going to insert, showers, kitchens, and all this other stuff in the space. What's the reality and the simplicity? Like, yes, we want affordable housing, but it's somewhat unaffordable many times to do that retrofit, isn't it?
Excuse me, the cost of construction, period. Again, and then you get into the retrofit, and actually retrofits are harder to pencil out, just because you're taking you're demolishing the existing structure, and then having to recreate it. And so in that instance, it's demolition, it's construction, it's the green, it's LED retrofit. And so that's been, again, not penciling out for a lot of folks. And so they've just been looking for, a lot of folks have been looking for ground up construction, unless they get have a public or private or a collaborative partnership.
Yeah, and I do have to say, this office to residential conversion, which is really popular, really talked about now, it is a moment in time, right? Our office vacancy is high because of everything that we've been dealing with in the pandemic, because organizations don't need as much office space because people aren't coming back to the office. But this is a moment in time. At some point, I am hoping, and I think we're all hoping, that things turn. So once we convert all this office space to residential and people are actually living in the city, we're going to need more office space. And then, there's going to be other issues. So it's all a balance. It really is.
Coming back to the sustainability trend too, is the office to residential conversion gives us an opportunity to really look at the signs of the times as I see it in some of the more successful communities, which are the curated communities that we're seeing, whether it be and again, I listen to Massachusetts-centric panel, but Salem, New Hampshire, at the old Rockingham Park, there's now Tuscan Village, which is rental units, condominiums for purchase, hotels, retail, you name it, places to live, work, and play. So as these conversions are happening, it does give us a great opportunity to make these micro communities within themselves that then are going to be less susceptible to economic downturn when things go out of favor. again, speaking to the retrofit and the cost of construction, many of our developer clients will say, who have done both, demos and ground up versus trying to retrofit, that the cost on many of these retrofits precludes that the only way you can make it work is by having, another set of luxury lofts that are going to be for the empty nesters that are selling that, there's no place in Beacon Hill, so let me do the next best thing to Beacon Hill and go live there. And, that certainly is important, but that's not, it's the workforce housing, in my opinion, that is forgotten in all of this. I think we certainly need to pay close attention to our affordable housing stock, but it is the workforce housing for the family of one or two children that is making, each parent is maybe making, $70,000 to $100,000 each. How are you going to be able to afford to buy, an entry-level home within 30 miles of Boston? That's the folks that we really need to be, I think, focusing on. And one of the ways that we can make that more affordable is, again, addressing how far do they have to commute to work? How far do they have to go for childcare? How far do they have to go for the doctor? How far do they need to go to recreate? And, it is a unique opportunity to do it and, potentially make it something that will last 20 years from now and we won't regret.
Good stuff. Thank you. All right. We have, if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of bankers in the room, so we're going to talk a little bit about them right now. We all know the Fed lowered rates for the first time in a long time back in September by 0.5 point, recently by another 0.25 point. How, if at all, has this influenced your views on the design and development of new space in Boston? And what changes do you anticipate in how projects will be financed or prioritized? Will there be any immediate impact? I'm hearing that in some cases, the rates for financing real estate went up, even though the Fed rate went down. So what are you saying?
So rates and development is like turning the Titanic. It's great that we did this, but nothing's going to happen tomorrow. I think, especially in development, we had really kind of a storm of the century in that we had construction prices that became astronomical overnight as a result of supply chain issues during COVID. We then had rising interest rates. We then had to deal with more pronounced issues with regard to individuals working in the construction industry and the availability of that. And then, oh, by the way, all these beautiful office buildings that were getting built. Yep, no, we're all working from home now. So we need to figure out what the hell to do with those things, right? So all of it, I think, for the most part, has slowed everyone in the real estate development industry down into a wait and see mode, and then really look back and say, all right, what is the ROI on this? How is this going to cash flow? And I know, from my conversations with many bankers, when they're looking at these projects and the pro formas on these projects to make them work, they're predicated upon ever increasing rents and ever increasing costs for these things to work. So, that the microeconomic supply demand metric is still certainly intact, but when you sharpen your pencil, it gets a lot harder to have it make sense and have it be bankable, given what the cost of money is right now.
My greatest statement would be, I think that it is positive for, I think it's positive for the development and in the real estate market, but it's complex. It's just one factor in a complex economic landscape, to be honest with you. The long-term impact will depend on a variety of factors, including overall economic climate, local market conditions, and regulatory policies.
Okay. This is a question for you, Reetika. Your firm's been an advocate for sustainability and design, especially as Boston pushes toward a net zero goal. How are sustainability requirements shaping the design and function of the current and future spaces? And please tell us about the challenges you face in balancing sustainable materials with traditional design expectations.
Sure. Yeah. Never before have we heard so much on the importance of sustainability to all of the tenants we're working with. When you go over their design pillars, when you're starting the design process, sustainability is always on the list. I think the challenge is that sustainability is expensive. I live in Wayland, just to get my recycling picked up. It's an arm and a leg, and I want to do the right thing, right? So I think right now the sophisticated tenant always has sustainability on their wish list. They're looking for buildings that provide them the greatest sustainable platform. So we were just touring with a really large global wealth advisor. They were looking for 116,000 square feet in Boston. This was a couple of years ago. And they, in order to select a building, they had us rate the most sustainable to the least. And of course, it was a new development building. So Windward Center, top of the list. And I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with it, but we're in the heart of Financial District. And they are, LEED Platinum certified. They are WELL certified. They are Passive House. They just got every sustainable rating and checked those boxes. Other new development buildings are also checking a wide variety of boxes. And then that's become an arms race to be able to state that we are the most sustainable building in Boston, but tenants want that. I think that the buildings that are more tenured, that they were the Class A buildings on the market, but those buildings are falling behind because they're just not as sexy, as not as sizzling as some of these new buildings on the market. But the unfortunate thing is the tenants select them. They say the landlord paid for all of the sustainability credits, and I'm choosing this building, and yeah, I'm paying a premium to come to this building, but my budget cannot afford me extending the sustainability mission to my particular space. So architects, please do the responsible thing, which we do. We make sure that all of our designs always specify the least lowest VOCs, recycled content, just all those things. The energy code that we're required to design to is very stringent in terms of electrical watts and heating loads and humidification, et cetera. But I feel like we still have a long way to go to meet some of the goals, all of the goals that we all want. It's just a cost issue, which is a challenge.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's a balance, right? So you're meeting sustainability requirements and even non-requirements, but the cost of that then creates a rental situation that's unaffordable by most people.
You got it. And even, there's, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with LEED. LEED is kind of like the first platform out there that measures sustainability and how much you do, and you can get LEED certified on different levels. To just go through and honor the LEED credits and not get certified, we can roll that in to most programs. To get the plaque, it's about $100,000 just to get a plaque that says, hey, we became LEED certified. And the plaque's important. That's important to say to all of your clients, to all of your employees, that we took that extra benefit of getting certification. And then there's LEED Silver, LEED Gold, LEED Platinum, and each of them have deltas in terms of construction and design costs. And the certification, it's super expensive.
Thank you. Okay, Chanda. As development continues across Greater Boston, what role does your company, OnyxGroup, play in promoting inclusivity within urban spaces?
Thank you for that question. We are champions of public and private partnership, but most importantly, we ensure that projects are designed and implemented in a way that it benefits the residents, particularly those from historically marginalized communities. This includes affordable workforce housing. To my other panelist's point, the missing middle is an issue. The folks that service our communities, the folks that are EMTs, our assistants, they are the ones that are being forced away from the cities in which they've grown up and lived and have lived, all their lives. And so focusing on creating programs and housing for that demographic is super important to us. And we do that through community engagement before development occurs, and which is important. No one wants to see a building come up and wonder, well, I wasn't a part of that decision. And so we engage the community before it's necessary, just again, to check the temperature. And also equitable hiring contracting practices, where we're working with local communities, colleges, middle schools even, to find talent, trade talent, and incorporate them in our developments. And using, local initiatives like that are just, little bits of what we do.
Well, follow-up question. We've been dancing around this with our discussion today. It might be the hardest question to answer, but how can large-scale projects be designed to balance profitability with the needs of underrepresented communities in some of these neighborhoods?
The public-private partnership, I'm just going to keep beating that drum. Large scale projects can definitely balance their community informed planning, engaging with local residents, mixed income housing. Affordable is, we need affordable. We also need workforce, and we do need a balance of market. Just let them off, just balance that that demographic also. And community amenities and public spaces are important because, community wants you, when you compete, it's our thing. And so we need to be cognizant of that, especially in our urban communities. Equitable transit access. We do know that having walkable communities is a thing, it's necessary, and it's going to be the stronghold in how our communities thrive.
Thank you. All right, Mark, you're going to finish us off with the last question here. Boston offers various tax incentives and credits for projects that contribute to affordable housing and sustainability. Can you please tell us about how these incentives influence the design and feasibility of urban projects aimed at improving community spaces? And how successful have these incentives actually been in terms of implementation and what improvements are needed here in Boston?
So I'll put everyone to sleep with a little tax talk. I promise it won't be that bad. So I'll start federally. We're very, very fortunate that we had the benefit of my favorite part of the Trump tax law, which is the creation of opportunity zones. It's been a huge groundswell within the Commonwealth as well as the entire country to really give private investors a very, very big incentive to redevelop blighted communities, blighted areas, which, let's face it, Massachusetts is an old state. It's perfectly designed for us. Adding on top of that, the Inflation Reduction Act federally made permanent many of the federal energy credits for solar, as well as clean building, that really all of these things put together create a soup that a developer is going to really take a look at to figure out how they make these projects work. I'm going to speak to this in 2 points. For the higher end, large scale developers, they have teams that are studying through all the different tax incentives, federal and state, that they can exploit to make a project work. Just as everyone has heard, the lifeblood of this country is small business. I would say the lifeblood of this state is also small scale developers. Now, small scale developers are the folks that are doing projects $100 million and under. Okay. Now, 100 million is not small in my book, but it's $100 million and under. Those are going to be the places that are doing between a 30 unit and a 300 unit property, right? Given the challenges in what's available for sites, something we need to really focus on. Okay. Now, the footprint. So federally, there's a bunch of incentives. In August of this past year, Governor Healy signed into law the Affordable Homes Act in Massachusetts, which authorized a little more than $5 billion in spending over the next 5 years in 50 policy initiatives to address housing costs. Now, I'm laughing because I printed this out intentionally. There are 6 pages here of the various things that are within this law. Okay. Biggest challenge that we have in this state from an affordability of housing and building standpoint is we need to hire, and anyone wants to create a company, and they probably exist, just to navigate all this crap. Okay. What do I need to do to get this to happen? So again, coordinating the tax incentives with the affordable piece. Given the cost, there's a tremendous amount of federal money, either through HUD as well as through the state, if you want to create affordable housing. There are places in Lawrence that are created that are affordable housing that they have vacancy rates of 30%. Now, why do they make? Because people don't qualify for them, but there's plenty of money for that. Again, I'm glad we're hammering on the workforce housing. That is what's killing us. That's what's going to drive employers out. If we don't solve workforce housing, that is our biggest existential threat to the housing costs in the Commonwealth. So there are too many things to really go through. There are new incentives in this law that do address specifically the office to residential conversions, focusing on all the energy efficient conversions and so on. If those things will really work. All right, what's the what are you going to get for a loan to value on borrowing funds from a particular agency or a particular bank or what have you? But it really is a kaleidoscope of tax credits that really, it's very difficult for the smaller developers to navigate. Bigger folks, again, there are teams of consultants that can do this, but the incentives do exist. The state is spending a tremendous amount of money on these incentives, but my advice to folks in the room that can influence policymakers is, again, we need a better navigation system to match these incentives to really empower developers and also empower banks to assist their customers when they're coming to them for financing to maximize the use of these credits. Coming back to it, it's tangentially related, but the energy efficiency. In the solar world, banks have figured out quite nicely how to monetize, the 30% solar credit by saying, all right, hey, I'll give you money for these panels. We'll put you in interest only. Once you get the tax credit, you pay it down and we'll amortize the rest. Those are types of innovative funding strategies that we can also apply on other fronts as we try to address the cost of housing and, adaptive reuse.
Well, thank you, Mark. The problem continues, like even with opportunity zones, right? If you invest enough in there, you get sort of that gentrification effect, and then you still don't have affordable housing, right? So it gets a little bit quirky. But wonderful panel. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Reetika. Thank you, Chanda.